Hi, everyone. Welcome to our free virtual event. We are just going to wait 60 seconds to get started because folks are trickling in. So hang tight and we will get started in just a moment. But thank you to everyone who's joined us. I think it's going to be a very fun conversation. I see more and more folks joining. This is great. To people who are just coming now, we're going to wait for a minute to get started, and then we're going to launch into our conversation. All right. I think we should get going. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Catherine. I'm from Team Handshake, and I'm very excited to welcome you to this event. I want to give you quick notes for housekeeping before we get started with the panel. So we're going to have like 20 minutes of discussion-ish, and then we will save about 10 minutes at the end for questions from you and the audience. So please be thinking of your questions and put them all in. You can put your questions in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to answer them before we end. So we're going to have that time at the end. You won't be able to see the questions submitted by other people until we answer them. Like, we have to mark them answered and then they will appear. So please don't think that we are ignoring you. We see all your questions. We receive a lot and we try to get to as many as we can. Okay, now to get started, we know fall recruitment is underway and it can be very daunting to see all of the different openings across so many industries. It is hard to know what all these roles are and what these roles mean in the different industries. So for that reason, we have a new career spotlight series that we are kicking off this fall so that you can get firsthand accounts of different positions that are out there, how people got there, what you do in the job, stuff like that. So today's panelist is the technical lead manager in machine learning infrastructure at Handshake. With that, I would like to welcome him. Kyle, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the project that you are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Kyle Gallatin. Um, I am a biology major originally. Went to Quinnipiac University, and at Handshake, I am the technical lead manager of machine learning infra, which basically means I'm a software engineer for machine learning infrastructure. So some projects that I'm working on right now are things like content ranking and feed. So for those of you using the Handshake app, you know we have a social feed. So I'm helping deploy the machine learning applications that power the content in that feed to make sure it's ranked, relevant, and important to you. We're also doing a lot of stuff around, AI for user job matching, and scaling out our existing job search services. But yeah, my job is fundamentally machine learning, infrastructure, software engineering together as one.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for the intro, and let's get started. So first things first, can you just talk through your average day-to-day? What is it like as an engineer in the machine learning space, and give us details?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the high level. It's a lot of coding. So I write a lot of Python, a lot of Go. It's a lot of infrastructure work, working in Google Cloud, Terraform, and similar tools. And I spend a lot of time building ML services. So, like I said, that content ranking thing, that's a web service that we're deploying to help rank stuff for feed. And then the usual architecture, design, Slack messages, and meetings and stuff. To give you a more concrete example, today I woke up, responded to Slack from yesterday. I authored some GitHub PRs, responded to folks, who needed to push that through, had meetings for a few hours talking about building stuff, which is also part of being a software engineer, and then went back to building it again and coding before this meeting. But it's definitely a mix of, a lot of time spent architecting new systems and talking that through with other engineers, writing the code myself to actually deliver new software, and of course, just chatting with folks on Slack, which I'm a little bit addicted to.
100%. I'm glad that that Slack came up not once, not twice, but three times in your answers, speaking to how addicted we all are to the constant interaction that we have with each other on Slack. Great. Okay, next question. Unexpected skills and misconceptions. Are there any skills you rely on that surprised you didn't know about when you came into this role? Or for folks watching, they may not think of this when they think of a machine learning engineer. And then sub question, what programs have you found yourself relying on the most in your work?
Sure. So I'll definitely address those one by one. One of the big skills that I feel like people often leave out of software engineering or machine learning engineering are soft skills and people skills. It is just as important as an engineer to be able to work with others, chat through problems, as it is to write highly efficient algorithms and deliver them to production. I think one of the skills that I've relied on most since I kind of like fell into this industry. Um, are some of my people skills and soft skills, whether it's communicating, speaking at conferences, helping resolve disputes over how we should design or build something. Those soft skills are extremely important and help me a lot in my day to day for sure. Um, on the technical side, to really dive in, one thing I use a lot in the machine learning space are like networking and infrastructure skills. For any folks on the call who are technical folks, might be practicing machine learning, you probably use a lot of Python, practicing training models. But one thing that I use a lot as an ML infrastructure engineer are the actual skills required to deploy that model into production to make machine learning available to the internet. Um, and knowing those skills goes a huge way in delivering real machine learning powered applications, which is a fundamental part of my job. If we can't link the actual machine learning we're building in Python to our application in Handshake, whether it's you typing in a search on job search, you getting ranked content on feed, or you receiving job recommendations in a weekly email, all of that requires us to actually build and connect machine learning to our application. And so those skills are very, very important and help bridge the gap between the machine learning development and the actual product itself. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. Actually, I'm gonna throw you for a loop because I have a real follow-up that's not scripted, Kyle. What percentage do you think is the breakdown between the soft and the technical skills? Because I bet people would be surprised, like that and make about how important that is even for a technical role, you know?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting because I would say that, I mean, as much time as you spend coding, like when you're in like an actual business enterprise, all of your code is like done with others. You're working in a shared GitHub repository, you're committing code together, you're reviewing others' PRs. And so even if, like even if I'm coding alone, I'm still at the end of the day shipping that with other people and like kind of going through a soft skills process to get that out there. So I would say it touches fundamentally everything that I do, even the technical stuff. I wouldn't say there's a clear percentage divide, but that it's basically improves every aspect of my technical skills by being able to have good, solid soft skills.
I love that. That's a great answer. Okay. And then another follow-up question is, are there common misconceptions you see floating around about machine learning that you would like to clear up for the audience?
Yeah, let me think about that. So, one thing is that like, you know, is kind of how big AI ML is. It's obviously a fairly hot term, a buzzword right now. And many folks think of it as some kind of like, all-encompassing, cognitive, thoughtful being. I think of it more as a tool in your toolkit to accomplish something. Um, I use ChatGPT, I use code AI tools on a daily basis to accelerate my workflows. And it's huge for me. I don't think of them as kind of replacing aspects of my work, but augmenting them. The other big thing is that it's inaccessible to non-technical people. So many folks like who don't come from technical backgrounds might be a little daunted by the idea of trying to like build AI into their workflows or build their own things themselves. But in the modern day and age, there's a lot of no-code tools for people to build everything from, ranking and recommendations workflows to image recognition stuff using tools like Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services, and a variety of other things out there. Do you have any misconceptions or thoughts about AI yourself, Katie?
Okay, so wow, we're really going off script here, but I think the people want to hear it. I was at a dinner last night with a bunch of like marketing leaders, and we were all talking about like the degree to which we think AI is going to influence like how people get jobs and like have jobs in our department and stuff. And I at least am of the belief that all I see it doing, especially for creative people, and well, I have technical and creative people on my team, but is helping them be more efficient. And it's like kind of my job as their boss to encourage them to do that, and not be nervous about it. Yeah, and maybe like also encourage myself to do it and not be nervous about it, where it's like, I don't know, like, why are you making that spreadsheet on your own? That's not gonna replace your job, but like something else can get that done faster. So I am pushing myself to get over any weird hurdles I have as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I recently worked on a course for a large company, and the entirety of the course was around how you as a business leader enable folks across your organization to use AI to be more efficient in everything that you're doing, which I think is really, really cool. And of course, there are lots of issues that need to be worked through when it comes to integrating AI, whether it's data privacy or otherwise, but the benefits are definitely there, and you can see that like businesses statistically are really valuing those AI skills more and more.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so my next question is, um, probably very common to people who are on this call. How does what you're doing today align with what you thought you would be doing when you started your career? And did anything make you change your path?
Yeah, so what I'm doing today is absolutely nothing like I thought I would be doing when I was graduating college. It's not even anything like I thought I would be doing after like my first job or two. So, like I said, I was a biology major in college. I immediately did a master's in biology after that. And I was like gonna do lab work or something. But while I was getting that master's, I ended up getting an internship at a biotech company doing data analysis. And basically learning some R and Python to like analyze cellular data that the company was getting. And that led me to like the whole space of data science, which is blowing up. So context, this is like 2016, where all this is starting to get really, really popular. And from there, even though I'd only done a little bit of coding in undergrad, I really fostered an interest in data science and programming. Went to a boot camp, got a data science internship at Pfizer, which turned into a full-time job. And then over the years, it changed even more. And I went from analytics and, like marketing analytics kind of data science to software engineering and infrastructure. I was at Etsy for 3 years where I like helped support their search ads and Rex, all of that real-time infrastructure. And now here I'm doing the same thing with Handshake systems, where I'm more of a software engineer than a data scientist or data analyst like I used to be a long time ago, and way more than a biologist.
I love that. It's as a fellow winding career person, it's probably useful for people to know that like your major doesn't necessarily determine your career 100%. It informs it really interestingly, but it doesn't like define it. So I totally agree with that.
No, and I know less and less people who kind of have a very clear path from undergrad to grad to like a career that's just perfectly linear.
Yeah, totally agree. And I see that all the time when I hire people. Okay. So, ooh, and there's so many good questions coming in. Not to look ahead, but good questions.
Cheat sheet.
Okay, next question for me. As with everything in life, the paths to careers are not linear, as we just said. As someone coming from outside the computer science space, what challenges did you face entering the field, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, when I kind of fostered an interest in data science, I ended up doing that boot camp to try and shore up the lack of technical expertise that I had in undergrad. I think I took like two coding classes. One was like a statistical coding class in MATLAB, and the other one was like an introduction to object-oriented programming in Scala for some reason. Built like video games and stuff. But that was all the programming I'd had prior to that data analyst internship and prior to the boot camp. So I did the boot camp, New York City Data Science Academy, where I still mentor actually, to shore up those skills. That being said, when I went to like, go into technical interviews, I was still pretty underskilled relative to a lot of my peers who had data structures and algorithms fundamentals, who'd been coding for years. And and I do want to make this part of the thing about technical interviews is that I had a lot of bad technical interviews while I was trying to find my first job as a data scientist, just total failures. And it's unfortunately part of the process and industry, but one thing I want to say is that never, ever, ever feel bad about having a bad technical interview. It is part of the experience, and I've had more than enough for more than enough myself for sure.
That is a good segue to the next question because I think, and I'm seeing a lot of these questions roll in that are about that like getting started moment is also just very reassuring to know that like failure once or twice along the way does not determine your overall outcome on something, and that you probably will. I mean, it would be an outlier who had every interview be perfect. I've certainly had some very dumb interviews where I've been like, what the heck? So
Oh yeah, for sure.
reinforce that. But do you have tips for people who are getting started, especially in machine learning or engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like practice is I mean practice makes perfect, to use that old proverbial saying. But what'll happen when you start getting into the interview process, and we can go to back to the, finding a resume, getting an interview process after this. But during the interview process, you're typically going to have things like a coding test, a machine learning theory test, and maybe like a system design test kind of thing. And all of those are going to be real time. They're going to be super stressful, and require a lot of studying and a lot of muscle memory. So what I tell folks who are practicing for interviews is, do a couple lead code problems or hacker rank problems, maybe on a daily basis or weekly basis even. Make sure you're kind of keeping up with flashcards, studying whatever approach you have, so that when you come into the interview, you can reflexively do that stuff, like on command. Because there's nothing worse than being caught off guard when you just freeze in the interview. And interviewing itself is also a skill. I definitely recommend folks to do practice interviews with peers or mentors or anyone that you have available, because you can practice as much as you want without being in front of someone, and then the moment you're there, all of a sudden you're just speaking gibberish or none of the technical information's coming, and it takes a while to get comfortable in that setting, dredging up those skills to do on command like that.
That is great advice. And I think honestly, that's great advice for any industry. It's like everyone sounds so good in their own head. And then you have to speak to someone who's a stranger or even just anyone else. And it's like, so gotta get the reps in for sure. If you could wave a magic wand and give every intern or new hire in your field one skill, what would it be and why?
Yeah, this is a fun one. One of the big ones that I think for me is business acumen. Like especially in the machine learning space, I see a lot of folks come from very, very academic backgrounds, where the focus of a given project was to, in an offline setting, improve, like an algorithm to a certain percentage kind of thing. But what a lot of folks who come from like the academia side of machine learning kind of adjust to when they get into like the business world is that the offline metrics, the algorithm metrics aren't the ones you're trying to move when you're building ML into real applications. You're trying to move business metrics, whether it's revenue, sales, or applies, clicks, those sorts of things. And kind of changing how you think about that mindset. And like balancing the academic side with the actual delivery and like business value side is huge and kind of takes some adjustment for sure. I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
Um, I kind of do actually. I think that's good kind of overall advice to people. Like I also have an academic background, and so granted on the humanities side, and um that was the thing that I learned when I learned it made a lot of my friends coming over from academia were like, how do I bridge into, and like that's kind of the skill you need to figure out. And it's a way to change. It's like you have to fully change like, oh, what is the motivation of this organization? Not what is the motivation of this pure theory, or like best for the discipline, which is where academia usually goes. It's instead like, hey, this business at the end of the day is a business. It's got to like make money and stay afloat. And so like, what is the business headed towards, and how can I orient me, my team, and my work to the business goals we're trying to reach? And the faster you can do that, the more kind of, I think, peace and happiness you have at work because you're like in sync with the cadence of things happening. So
Yeah,
very,
absolutely.
very much.
Yeah, that context definitely changes how I deliver software, how I see ML engineers think about the models that they build. It's not always the best model that's built. It's the one that, is best for the bottom line. It's like cost efficient, still effective, and easy to develop and use for everybody. And that's kind of an interesting distinction between academia and the business world is, the latest and greatest state-of-the-art model might not be the thing powering all of the business stuff, and for good reason.
And for good reason. That's the point. Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have now come to the point in the event where we will go to the audience Q&A, and I'm going to look at the, oh my God, Kyle, we got a lot. Okay, take a drink.
I'm so
Get
sick.
ready. Okay, here we go. Question number one, is work-life balance achievable as a machine learning engineer? It's not talked about enough, but how's your health and mental health while working in this industry?
That's a great question. First off, I would say it is absolutely achievable. It's probably more dependent on the organization itself than it is the job. Most coding jobs, machine learning engineering included, offer a lot of autonomy, right? You are programming a lot, you're on your own a lot. Your meeting schedule is definitely lighter than someone who's in sales or doing something of that nature. Um, and so you kind of get to set the pace as long as it's within, delivery guidelines and your manager's expectations that you're working. Of course, company culture can like affect that heavily, regardless of, where you're machine learning engineering. And I've definitely left places in the past because of negative company culture. Right now, I have a great manager. I like try to be a good manager myself, and think I've got a pretty good work-life balance going besides my Slack addiction.
Yeah, that's on you, dude. I mean,
It is.
I
It's
guess.
totally on me.
And I know your manager, and he is lovely, and so that's great to hear. Okay, this is another good one. How did your day-to-day change from a junior or associate team member to a more senior position?
Absolutely. So as like a junior engineer or ML engineer, you're expected to complete tasks, but do less kind of planning, architecting, that sort of thing. When you're a junior engineer, you kind of look at like smaller tasks, pick up tickets, and basically do work that senior engineers are maybe delegating to you or partner with folks on a project kind of thing. The expectation is as you move from less junior or junior to more senior to staff, is that there's an increase in scope in terms of the size of the architecture you build, like the basically the impact that you're making with that architecture. And that changes from I'm going to write this line of code to I'm going to build this system that is going to change and improve these things for the company, which requires a lot wider thinking, a lot more context, and a lot more experience. And so the expectations basically change as you move up each engineering level to increase that scope, and increase the expectations for your technical acumen, your business acumen, the how you work cross-functionally, all of the above.
And that's a lot more ambiguity too that comes with that, all those other types of ways you have to interact with people. Um, okay, here is one, some iteration, a few people have asked some iteration of this. What is the best way to network, to find an internship in data science or machine learning?
That is such a good question because I haven't figured this out myself, but I'll just kind of like posit stuff into the air and please, like engage if I say anything stupid or you have better thoughts. Um, But I think one of the best ways in this space is probably to go to events, whether it's like meetups. I've seen a lot of college students like effectively network at meetup events. If I'm speaking at a conference or a meetup or something like that, especially where it's free ones, I see a lot of folks from local universities show up because you can speak to people in person. It's not like a cold like email or cold like a handshake or LinkedIn message kind of thing. And that can be a great way to meet people in the industry and start those conversations. That being said, platforms like Handshake or LinkedIn or whatever offer you really good ways to connect with peers. And like, or even other ones, you can go on GitHub, you can go on blogs, Reddit, maybe even, I don't know. But But there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with folks, obviously through the internet as well. But meetups, I think, have been the most effective way that I've seen.
I love that. And there are a lot of events that you can find on Handshake too. So it's like another good thing to do. But I also think of it as something about it's tough to hear this, but it's a little bit of like shots on the goal. Like you gotta go to a lot, you gotta try a lot of stuff. You gotta go to things, you gotta talk to people, and like some networking doesn't stick, and other times you meet someone great. And so
Yeah,
uh,
the other thing that I found with that too is that my like network really started expanding dramatically after I started putting myself out there, like writing blogs and writing posts myself. All of a sudden, I wasn't reaching out to recruiters for roles. Recruiters were reaching out to me because I was publishing a lot of stuff. I was coming up in searches. I was like a very findable person. I basically like SEO'd myself and I totally SEO'd the other Kyle Gallatin in the country to death. There is one other on social media. You can't find him anymore. But yes, putting yourself out there and creating content that makes you findable is also really good.
oh my God, I'm gonna get the next question, but I'm laughing at the idea of you somewhat ruining the other Kyle Gallatin's online life. Very cool. Okay. Do you have any resource recommendations for intermediate machine learning studies, in particular, bridging the gap from theoretical to practical machine learning?
This is always the toughest question because resources change so dramatically. I am the co-author of a technical book called the Machine Learning and Python Cookbook, second edition. The co-author part means that I co-authored the second edition, which means I did way less work and get way less royalties. But I did author it. And so that's a good reference for a lot of little machine learning code and stuff. I do really like O'Reilly's set of books. That's the publisher that that book came from. Their online learning platform gives you access to a bunch of them, and it's really, really great to be able to peruse those because they're trusted sources of knowledge. That aside, though, there's so many good YouTube videos, Coursera courses. I talk to ChatGPT all the time if I have theory questions. There's a lot of different things out there that you can work with, just to name a few.
Um, there are so many questions that I'm just throwing this out there. We might need to do part two with Kyle.
I'd love to.
Learning. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Do you think an MS or PhD is necessary for a machine learning role?
It depends on what kind of machine learning role we're talking about. Like I usually break it into like ML, I usually call ML practitioner anyone who is like training and developing ML models. At most places, it is not strictly required to have an MS or PhD to be training advanced machine learning models. That being said, if you're on the research team at a major tech firm, then it's going to 100% be an expectation, and it's definitely going to boost your chances of being viewed as a candidate. And so you see a lot of, more practical machine learning practitioner roles have some kind of MS or PhD expectation. Um, for my role, which is fundamentally a software engineering role, I'm not doing research, I'm building applications. There's no expectations. It's nice to have, but I might as well, like flush my MS in molecular biology down the toilet for all the good it does me when it comes to like actually working in these jobs. So, the answer is it depends, like most things, but unless you're training advanced state-of-the-art models or doing research, it's unlikely that you would absolutely need one.
That is great. Short of you flushing your degree down the toilet, which like no, no, disagree. Okay, how about one last question here is tell us a little bit. I'm gonna skip ahead. Just how important is it for you to get your personal brand out there? I thought that was a great thing you said. Someone else asked about that. Why don't we wrap on that question and take it away, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's super like important and it's not for everyone has like their own way of like maybe writing blogs or doing videos or however they want to present their work, even if it's just code. But that was huge for me in my career. That's how I got the book actually, is I just was blogging on Medium because I had fun things that I wanted to write about and I liked writing. And then all of a sudden people were in my emails saying like, "Hey, do you want to author a book? Because your blogs are relevant to this, you have a lot of views and you have like the writing style that we're looking for." And I would also like download my LinkedIn data and graph like my messages over time and just notice like the more and more I published, like the more that my socials and tech socials really started to explode. And so I'm trying to do the same thing with Handshake now that we have a feed. I'm, posting on there, sharing stuff, and it's so fun. But it also increases all of the engagement with my profile. Except this goal is different. I'm on Handshake to help you. But
Yeah, and so that is a good final plug as we thank people for being here. And Kyle is on the feed, so you should go on the feed. Kyle will post. You can ask Kyle questions. This is the thing you can do. You can follow him. You can get his book. Check out his blog. And Kyle, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone who attended.
yes, thank
Okay,
you very, very much. I really appreciated it. This was cool.
awesome. All right, bye everyone. Have a good day. See ya.